The night was still, but silence can sometimes scream louder than chaos. Emily whispered, "I feel something here is wrong." Her voice trembled as the lights flickered across the hallway. A shadow danced on the wall, stretching unnaturally long, as if alive. James stepped forward, his breath quick and uneven, scanning the abandoned house. He muttered, "This doesn't feel like coincidence. Someone wanted us to see this." The sharp stench of iron filled the air. A door creaked open in the distance, though no one touched it. Emily's heart pounded, echoing inside her ears like a drum of panic. The wallpaper was torn, scratched as though clawed at desperately. James froze, staring at the wall ahead, his eyes widening. He whispered, "God, Emily, look." A single word, painted in dripping crimson, spelled betrayal across the cracked plaster. The world seemed to tilt. Their safe life had just shattered, and they both knew it. A scream erupted suddenly from deeper inside, tearing through the silence like glass breaking into 1,000 shards. Emily clutched her chest, gasping, her body frozen with fear. James pulled her closer, whispering, "Stay behind me." The scream echoed again, fainter this time, as if swallowed by the building itself. The hall seemed endless, stretching in suffocating silence. James' flashlight flickered, then steadied on the crimson letters. His jaw clenched as he muttered, "This wasn't random." Emily shook her head, tears forming, saying, "Why here? Why us?" The smell of decay thickened, invading every breath. Their footsteps grew heavier, echoing back unnaturally. The creaking of unseen movement rattled through the ceiling beams. The house itself felt alive, watching, waiting. Emily whispered, "We should leave," but the air seemed to choke her words. James took another step, his face set, though fear gripped him. Their lives had been safe once, simple, but in this moment, everything felt poisoned. The boards creaked beneath their feet like voices whispering secrets. Emily shivered, whispering, "Someone was here before us." James raised the flashlight upward, revealing peeling wallpaper curling away like skin. The word on the wall dripped faintly, still, fresh. He whispered, "This was done tonight." Emily's knees weakened, her breath shallow. The air carried weight, pressing them closer together. A faint metallic clink echoed from the upstairs, something shifting in the dark. James muttered, "We're not alone," his grip tightening around the flashlight. Emily clutched his arm tighter, fear swallowing reason. The past hour of normal life seemed like another world, unreachable now. Every step forward carried them deeper into a truth they couldn't yet see but already feared. The upstairs creaked again, deliberate this time, heavier than before. Emily stammered, "It's coming closer." James inhaled sharply, scanning the stairs with his dim beam. His mind raced, torn between retreat and facing what lurked above. The word on the wall pulsed in his vision, a scar etched into reality. Emily's tears slid silently, her voice breaking. "This isn't just about tonight. This is about us." James turned sharply, his expression shifting from fear to realization. A door upstairs slammed, rattling the entire house. The air carried vibrations that shook their bones. James whispered, "They want us afraid." Emily's breath hitched, her body trembling, as they both froze, waiting for the next sound. The silence that followed was worse than the noise, endless, suffocating. The silence stretched too long, heavy like chains binding them in place. Emily's voice cracked, "James, please, we need to go." James stared upward, jaw tight, refusing to move backward. His whisper was calm but edged with fire. "If we run now, we'll never know." The weight of betrayal on the wall loomed behind them like a curse. The hallway seemed to breathe, the air shifting as if unseen hands pushed against them. Emily sobbed softly, torn between fear and loyalty. James exhaled, steadying his nerves, then stepped onto the first stair. The wood groaned beneath him. Emily gasped, gripping his hand. In that moment, their fates felt bound to whatever awaited above. The house swallowed their footsteps, every sound magnified, promising no return. Morning broke with a heavy gray sky, yet the weight in Emily's chest was darker than the clouds. She sat at her kitchen table, fingers trembling as she traced the edge of a coffee mug. James entered, eyes bloodshot, whispering, "I didn't sleep." His tone was sharp, hollow, as if every second replayed the terror. Emily looked up, her voice fragile. "It wasn't just the house, it was meant for us." James clenched his jaw, fists pressed against the counter. The word betrayal lingered in both their minds, not just painted on walls but carved into their trust. The silence between them was louder than words, filled with dread neither could name. Emily's breath caught as she remembered the scream, raw and human. She whispered, "We can't pretend anymore." James nodded slowly, but his eyes refused to meet hers. What? Their world had shifted, innocence gone, only fear and questions left. Emily's phone buzzed, the vibration jolting her from silence. She picked it up with shaking hands. A message glowed on the screen, "You can't run from truth." She dropped the phone, whispering, "James, it followed us." He grabbed the device, scanning the message, his face draining of color. "They know us," he muttered. Emily hugged herself tightly, feeling the walls closing in. Every object in the kitchen seemed foreign now, dangerous. The sound of ticking from the wall clock grew louder, unbearable. James whispered, "We're being watched," his voice cracking. Emily stared out the window, blinds casting bars of shadow across her face, as if trapped. Her pulse throbbed in her ears, fear sinking deeper. Their safe space was no longer safe, and the world beyond felt even worse. Emily whispered, "What if this is about her?" James froze, his shoulders stiffening as if struck. He avoided her gaze, staring at the floor. Emily pressed, her voice shaking, "You never told me everything, did you?" The silence was suffocating, each second stretching into years. James finally spoke, his tone low. "There were things before you, things I tried to bury." Emily's eyes filled with tears, her voice trembling. "And now they're back." The betrayal on the wall replayed in her mind, no longer just a warning, but an accusation. James whispered, "I swear I thought it was over." His words offered no comfort. Emily pressed her hands to her face, overwhelmed. Outside, a crow cawed, its echo like a cruel reminder that shadows of the past always return. The silence shattered with a sharp knock at the door. Emily jumped, clutching her chest. James whispered, "Don't answer." But the knocking grew louder, deliberate, insistent. Emily's voice broke, "What if it's help?" James shook his head, sweat gathering on his brow. The third knock echoed like thunder, rattling the fragile calm of the room. Emily crept toward the door, her hand trembling on the knob. James pulled her back, whispering, "Please, not yet." They stood frozen, listening. The sound stopped. For a moment, the house was silent again, but Emily's heart raced as if expecting it to start again. James whispered, "They're playing with us." Emily's breath hitched, a tear sliding down her cheek. Fear had found its way inside, without ever opening the door. The knocking never returned, but the silence was worse. Emily whispered, "I feel like they're still here." James stepped away from the door, pacing, hands on his head. He muttered, "This is control. Fear is their weapon." Emily hugged herself, voice breaking, "But why us?" James stopped, staring at her, his expression caught between anger and sorrow. "Because of what I've done," he admitted quietly. Emily's knees weakened, her grip on the table keeping her upright. The room seemed smaller, shadows pressing in closer. James whispered, "I'll fix this," but even he didn't believe it. Emily turned away, tears slipping down, the weight of betrayal heavier than ever. Their lives were unraveling thread by thread, and no safe corner remained. Emily sat at the police station, her hands clenched tightly in her lap. Bottom. The buzzing fluorescent lights overhead hummed like a constant reminder of their unease. Detective Harris leaned forward, his voice calm yet sharp. "Tell me again what you saw." "Dial." Emily's voice cracked. There was blood, a message and a scream. It was real. James stood near the wall, arms crossed, jaw tight, his silence louder than her words. Harris tapped his pen, eyes narrowing. And you're certain no one followed you there? Emily shook her head, her pulse quickening. James muttered, someone wanted us to find it. The detective scribbled something down, his gaze flicking between them. The weight of suspicion filled the room. Emily whispered, this wasn't random, it's personal. Harris leaned back, exhaling heavily, the truth pressing against them like a storm yet to break. James' voice cut through the tension, steady but edged with anger. You don't understand. This was left for us. Detective Harris narrowed his eyes, scribbling notes. Emily's hands shook as she whispered, we're being watched. The detective leaned forward, lowering his tone. If that's true, then someone close knows more than they admit. Emily flinched, her eyes darting toward James. James clenched his fists, muttering, nah, it's deeper than that. Harris studied him carefully, suspicion etched across his face. The ticking of the wall clock punctuated each pause, amplifying the weight of silence. Emily whispered again, her voice nearly breaking, someone wants to destroy us. Harris pressed his lips together, closing his notebook slowly, as if bracing for what would come next. Emily's breath quickened as she recalled the sound of the scream, raw and haunting. It wasn't just fear, she whispered, it was pain. James rubbed his temples, his eyes bloodshot. Detective Harris wrote something down, then asked softly, do you know anyone who might want to hurt you? James' silence was deafening, his gaze fixed on the floor. Emily turned to him, voice trembling, James, tell him. James finally raised his head, his jaw clenched. There were things from before, he admitted, his tone bitter. Harris leaned closer, sensing cracks in the story. Emily's tears welled as she realized secrets were surfacing, secrets that could explain why betrayal was painted on the walls. Detective Harris exhaled, his voice firm. If you're hiding something, now is the time to speak. Emily's tears spilled, whispering, we can't keep running. James stood suddenly, his chair scraping against the floor, startling the room. It's not that simple, he snapped. Harris rose slowly, hands steady, eyes locked on James. Emily's sobs echoed, filling the sterile space with anguish. Harris leaned in, his tone colder, secrets will bury you both if you don't let me in. James swallowed hard, sweat dripping down his temple. Emily's hand reached out toward him, trembling, begging without words. The truth lingered on his lips, ready to change everything. James finally spoke, his voice low but heavy with guilt. Years ago, I was involved with someone dangerous. I thought it was over, but it wasn't. Emily gasped, covering her mouth. Harris leaned forward, eyes narrowing. And now they've returned, James continued, his hands shaking. Emily's sobs grew louder, her chest heaving with each breath. Harris scribbled quickly, muttering, this changes everything. James looked at Emily, his expression filled with regret. I never wanted you caught in this, he whispered. Emily's voice cracked, but now I am. The words echoed like a verdict, sealing their fates in betrayal's shadow. Emily's hands trembled as Detective Harris laid a folder on the table. The cover was worn, marked with years of dust. He opened it slowly, revealing photographs. Emily gasped, recognizing James in them, younger, standing beside a woman with cold eyes. Harris spoke firmly. This is Anna, the one tied to everything. James lowered his head, his voice rough. She wasn't supposed to come back. Emily's voice cracked. You knew her? You lied to me? The truth spilled like poison, every second unraveling what little trust remained. Harris leaned in, his tone grim. She's not gone. She's been watching you both. Emily's tears blurred her vision, her world tilting under the weight of betrayal. The twist of reality cut sharper than any blade. The photographs stared back like ghosts from another life. Emily whispered, she was with you all this time. James raised his head, pain etched across his face. I thought she was gone, he muttered, his voice shaking. Harris slid another photo forward. Anna, her piercing gaze frozen in time. She was more than an ally, Harris said. She was the reason for this message. Emily's heart pounded, her hands clutching the edge of the table. She realized betrayal wasn't just a word on the wall. It was truth carved into her life. James whispered, "She knows how to hurt me. And now she's hurting you." The air thickened, every moment revealing that the danger was closer than ever. Detective Harris leaned back, his voice calm but cutting. "Anna isn't just watching, she's orchestrating." Emily's stomach churned, the truth gnawing deeper. James muttered, "She's ruthless, she won't stop." Emily stared at him, betrayal burning in her eyes. "You brought this to me," she whispered. James clenched his fists, unable to deny it. Harris slammed the file shut, the sound echoing like a gunshot. "This is bigger than you both," he said, "and now it's closing in." Emily's tears streamed down, her chest heavy with fear and anger. The room seemed smaller, suffocating, as if the walls themselves held secrets. The reality was undeniable. Anna's shadow had returned, and it was only the beginning. Emily's voice broke. "You never told me the truth. You let her haunt us." James pressed his palms to his face, whispering, "I wanted to protect you." Harris interjected, "Your silence only made her stronger." Emily's tears blurred her vision, the weight of the revelation crushing her spirit. She slammed her hand on the table, shouting, "You lied to me, James." The words pierced the room like knives. James looked at her, his expression hollow, stripped of excuses. "I didn't think she would come back," he whispered. Harris stood, his voice like iron. "She never left. And now she's ready to finish what she started." The truth shattered what little hope remained, leaving only fear. The silence after Emily's outburst was unbearable. James finally whispered, "If she's back, she won't stop until we're destroyed." Harris leaned in, his words heavy. "Then we fight back. But you'll need to tell me everything." Emily's heart pounded, torn between fear and fury. She turned to James, her voice trembling, "No more lies." James nodded slowly, the weight of truth pressing him down. Harris opened his notebook, ready. "Start from the beginning," he demanded. The air thickened with anticipation, every second dragging. Emily wiped her tears, bracing for revelations that could change everything. The betrayal was no longer hidden. It stood in the room with them, shaping their fate. The night was thick with tension as Emily and James followed Detective Harris through the rain-soaked alley. Neon signs flickered faintly, casting distorted colors across wet pavement. Harris whispered, "She's inside. Stay close." Emily's heart raced, her breaths shallow. James clenched his fists, muttering, "It ends tonight." The building loomed before them, its broken windows like hollow eyes. The sound of dripping water echoed, punctuating their steps. Emily whispered, "I'm not ready," but her body moved forward anyway. Harris glanced back, his gaze sharp. Courage doesn't wait for readiness. The door creaked open, the darkness inside pulling them in. Emily shivered, realizing this was the moment everything had been building toward, the point of no return. Inside, the air was damp and heavy, filled with the scent of rot. Emily's footsteps echoed too loudly, each sound betraying her nerves. James whispered, "She's here," his eyes darting across the shadows. A faint voice echoed, soft yet sharp, "You should have stayed away." Emily froze, her chest tightening. Harris raised his weapon, his voice steady, "Anna, it ends here." The silence that followed was suffocating. A shadow moved, slipping between broken beams. Emily's trembling hand reached for James, whispering, "She's playing with us." James gritted his teeth, whispering back, "That's what she does." Every second stretched long, the house itself alive with menace. A figure stepped into the faint glow. Anna, her eyes cold and calculating. Emily gasped, her body stiff. James whispered her name like a curse. Anna smirked. "Still chasing ghosts, James?" Harris leveled his weapon. "Don't move." Anna tilted her head, unafraid, her voice dripping venom. "You think you know betrayal? You haven't seen anything yet." Emily's tears spilled, whispering, "Why us?" Anna's smirk widened. "Because he chose me once. And now he'll lose everything for it." James' fists shook, guilt painted across his face. The air tightened. Every breath weighed down with the gravity of truth. The confrontation was no longer avoidable. It was here. Anna's voice echoed, "You betrayed me long before I betrayed you." James stepped forward, his voice raw. "I walked away from you, Anna. That wasn't betrayal, it was survival." Emily's chest heaved, torn between anger and despair. Harris' voice cut through, commanding, "Drop whatever you're hiding." Anna laughed, sharp and hollow. From her coat she pulled a knife, its blade glinting under the flickering light. Emily screamed, "No!" Harris steadied his aim, shouting, "Don't make me do this." Anna's eyes blazed, her grip firm. The moment teetered on the edge of chaos, every heartbeat carrying the weight of life and death. The air shattered as Harris barked, "Drop it now." Anna's grip tightened, her eyes burning with fury. Emily sobbed, clutching James' arm, whispering, "Please stop this." James' voice cracked, "Anna, enough." For a heartbeat, everything was still. Then Anna lunged, the knife flashing. Harris fired, the blast echoing through the hollow walls. Emily screamed, collapsing against James as the sound tore through her ears. Anna staggered, her smirk fading into shock, blood staining her coat. She fell to the ground, the knife clattering beside her. Silence followed, heavy and absolute. The climax had come, and nothing would ever be the same again. The silence after the gunshot lingered, echoing in their hearts more than in the room. Emily clung to James, her tears soaking into his jacket. Harris lowered his weapon, his shoulders heavy, his voice hushed. "It's done." James looked at the lifeless figure on the floor, his breath shallow, whispering, "She haunted me for years, and now she's gone." Emily's body trembled, her voice weak, but at what cost? The building groaned with age, as if mourning with them. Harris knelt, his face grim, checking Anna's pulse, then whispered, "She won't return." Emily's sobs filled the space, grief and relief tangled into one. The nightmare had ended, but the damage left behind was etched deep within their souls. Rain tapped steadily outside as they stepped into the night, the storm washing over them. Emily whispered, "It feels unreal," her voice fragile. James squeezed her hand, whispering back, "We survive." Harris walked beside them, his expression weary but firm. "Survival doesn't erase scars," he said, his tone weighted with truth. Emily looked at James, her eyes searching his face for something solid to hold on to. The neon glow reflected in puddles, distorted and broken, much like their lives. Harris added, "The law will see her for what she did, but the shadows may linger." Emily lowered her head, whispering, "I just want peace." The rain disguised her tears as they walked onward into the night. Back at the station, Emily sat in silence, staring at the floor. James sat across, his face pale, lost in thought. Harris wrote his report, his pen scratching against paper. "You'll have to relive this in testimony," he said, voice steady. Emily shivered, whispering, "I don't know if I can." James leaned forward, his eyes filled with regret. "I'll be there. I won't let you face it alone." Harris looked up, his eyes softening for a moment. "Justice is heavy," he said, "but it's the only way forward." Emily nodded faintly, her lips trembling. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and for the first time in days, silence didn't feel like a threat. It felt like exhaustion. Days later, the house where it all began stood empty, its windows boarded, its walls scarred by silence. Emily returned, her steps slow, her breath heavy. James walked beside her, his hand brushing hers, both hesitant. "Why come back here?" he asked softly. Emily whispered, "Because if I don't, it will never let me go." The hallway smelled of dust and memory. She touched the wall where betrayal had once dripped in crimson. Her voice cracked, "It's gone now, but I'll never forget." James' eyes lowered, shame heavy in his chest. He whispered, "I'm sorry." Emily turned to him, her tears shining. "We both carry it now." The silence pressed around them, but it no longer owned her. The trial loomed, yet tonight Emily and James sat quietly at their kitchen table. Candlelight flickered, soft and fragile. Emily whispered, "We'll never be the same." James reached across the table, his hand covering hers. "No," he admitted, "but maybe we can be stronger." Emily's tears glistened as she managed a faint smile. Harris's words echoed in her mind. "Justice is heavy, but it is the only way forward." The darkness outside pressed against the windows, but inside, the flame held steady. Emily whispered, "She's gone, but I won't let her shadow define me." James nodded, his eyes filled with sorrow and hope. For the first time, the weight of betrayal seemed lighter. The courtroom was silent, the weight of the trial pressing on everyone present. Emily sat rigid, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, eyes fixed on the floor. James sat beside her, his expression heavy with guilt yet also with resolve. The judge's voice echoed, recounting the crimes, every word slicing through the stillness. Emily whispered under her breath, "It's over." Yet deep down, she knew nothing would erase what had been endured. The sound of the gavel striking wood felt final, yet haunting. As the courtroom emptied, Emily lingered, staring at the empty chair where Anna once sat. Her voice trembled, "Her shadow is still here." James placed a hand on her shoulder, whispering, "She's gone, Emily. You're free." Emily shook her head, eyes glassy with unspoken grief. Freedom did not feel whole, but fractured. Harris stepped forward, his expression calm. "Justice was served. Now it's your turn to live." The words felt heavy, but they planted a fragile seed of hope. That night, Emily stood by the window, watching rain trail down the glass. James approached quietly, placing a hand on hers. She whispered, "I'll always see her when I close my eyes." James responded, "Then let's make new memories ones she can't haunt." Emily turned, her tears illuminated by streetlight outside, and nodded faintly. The house around them felt different, not safe, but reclaimable. She realized healing would not be sudden. It would be step by step, breath by breath. Days later, Emily walked alone through a quiet park at dusk. The air smelled of wet earth, and the sky glowed orange, fading into gray. She whispered softly, "I survived." The words felt fragile but real. Children's laughter echoed in the distance, reminding her that life continued beyond grief. She closed her eyes, breathing in deeply, letting the sound wash over her. For the first time, the weight pressing on her chest eased. She was not healed, but she was still here. That night, Emily placed a single candle on the kitchen table and lit it. James sat across, watching her silently. She whispered, "This flame is for what we lost, and what we have left." James reached across, holding her hand firmly. Their silence was not empty, but filled with unspoken strength. The candle flickered, shadows dancing on the walls, reminding them of pain, but also of endurance. Emily closed her eyes and whispered, "We're still here." The words lingered as the screen faded to black.